Hello, everyone. Welcome to New Gen Politics. So, with the incoming TikTok ban, the government thought that most people would switch to other platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, but that's not been the case because with the ban coming up, TikTok users have preemptively switched to another platform called RedNote, which is a Chinese CCP directly connected alternative to TikTok, which is all in Mandarin. And so this is not a good sign for the relationship between people of the United States and this concept of privacy that allegedly the US government is trying to protect. Because most people are switching to this thing that's directly CCP owned. It says you got to have allegiance to the CCP, and they just don't care. They're calling themselves TikTok refugees and, in fact, downloading Chinese specific apps as a form of protest against the government banning TikTok, which they see as basically unjustified. And while I agree that we shouldn't have foreign adversaries spying on us, and we probably shouldn't allow things like this, the reason that the government is upset is not being genuine. It's not really that they care about other countries stealing your data to protect you. It's that that's their job. They're supposed to spy on you. You know, no one else can spy on you but me. It's the US government wants to have their own personal abusive relationship with you, and they don't want anybody else abusing you. You know, they want full control of you, and if anybody else tries to, they're stepping into their arena. So the US government, we know, spies on Americans, totally unrightfully too. And so people just have this relationship with privacy where they know they can't protect their privacy anymore. You know, you have to ask apps not to track anymore. You can't just say no, right? Like, we know that the governments and all these companies have your data anyways. So why not let the CCP have it? What's really the big deal? And that's what most people are thinking. So they don't really care because they know their privacy is stolen one way or another. They just don't really care who has it because it's none of their concern. So it's really hypocritical of the government to kind of say this, like, oh, we're trying to protect you because we don't want other people to have your privacy, but we want it. And so the people are protesting and saying they want to switch. And TikTok is also, it's a very hard thing to ban because a lot of people make their income off it. It's kind of it's a social square where people can communicate, share ideas, and it's kind of become almost integrated into the way we communicate now. Like, would people switch over to another platform if it's banned? Yes, and life would go on. But it's the principle that this is not a very popular position to really ban TikTok, or not in the way they're doing it. And in the fact that they're just going after like a singular company and not saying like, okay, well, we're not going to allow any apps to be downloaded in America from other countries, or, you know, anything from China specifically. It's like they're just going after this one, and they thought that would solve the problem. And in fact, it's probably made it worse, because I've seen videos of people going over to this app RedNote. Like I said, it's in full Mandarin. So you just go over there and you kind of have to let the algorithm do the work, but they're seeing much more organic Chinese media. And they're like, oh, wow, China doesn't look that bad. Like, oh, it looks safe and clean and nice. And there definitely are parts that are safe and clean and nice, but it's not everywhere. But people are starting to believe that, like, oh, wow, China has it so good. Like, maybe we shouldn't be that, aggressive towards them. Maybe they have the right idea. It's like, oh my gosh, U.S. government, you just drove your ex into the arms of another man, of another country. That's what's been going on. And so this whole thing's just kind of a mess, because it's like, is this really that important? Not really. And because most people don't care. Most American citizens don't care that the Chinese government's stealing their data, because they figure the US government's doing it, and then China's probably getting it from the US government through a backdoor anyways. So what's the big deal? And what they're really concerned about is you're impeding on my ability to make money, or just my like form of entertainment that I enjoy. You're kind of overstepping your bounds on issues that most people don't really care that much about. So it's kind of a weird situation. I agree in theory with the US government, but the problem is that the people doing it and putting it into practice and not following through and saying, like, we want to protect Americans' privacies for Americans, not we want to protect Americans' privacies from other countries for our benefit. I can understand why people don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. So it's kind of hard to be totally one side or the other, because it's not very clear. It's like, I agree with my enemy in principle, but they still, they're still acting like jerks. Like, they're still the US government. They're still doing everything they don't want other countries to do to us, to our own people. So should we really, trust that they have what's best for us in mind? And most people would say, no, I'd rather have what I have and take what actually impacts me personally. That weighs heavier than this theoretical, what helps or hurts the U.S. on the world stage. People care more about what's going on in their own lives. And even if it's something as silly as what apps they use or what they prefer, it's still important to them. They still care about it. They're kind of habitual in it. And they don't want someone coming in and removing that for reasons that they either don't understand or don't care about. So the US government, they probably will end up banning it, but this isn't the end of this problem. They're just going to keep switching to other Chinese apps, and they might actually become more indoctrinated with the CCP and think China is great. And wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to not have people want to go to war with China. Basically, it would be good to not have American citizens think the Chinese are evil and get us dragged into a war like the government kind of wants us to anyways. So that's kind of the silver lining, is maybe people realize that China's the government's evil, the people are not that bad, and there's no reason to go to World War III with them. But we also don't want American citizens to become culturally, grass is greener with communism in the language, even though it's not really communist anymore, kind of, but not really. We don't want communism emboldened in America because of the illusion of grass is greener in China. So that's not a good thing, but weird situation overall. And I can understand why most people just either don't care or think this is just dumb, this isn't going to accomplish anything. And that again, the US government probably is not doing this for our best interests in mind. So we'll just have to see what happens if it gets banned. People will switch to RedNote or other social media platforms. And life will go on. But there's going to be more conversations about the relationship between Americans' privacies and Americans' interests versus the U.S. interest. I talked about this in previous weeks when we were talking about American first versus America first with the whole H-1B visa thing. And this is another thing, American first privacy or America first privacy. What's more important, and how does that look and how does that play out? And who gets the final say? So we'll have to see what happens with all this stuff. The continuing relationship with the government and the people, and doing policies that may or may not actually really do anything in the long run. But it's certainly stirring the pot and could make things interesting for a little bit. So I will update if I hear what happens with it, if the ban actually comes, and what happens to TikTok users in general after that, and this whole social media relationship thing that's getting thrown up in the air, especially with Mark Zuckerberg's interview last week about how our government is interfering and trying to censor stuff. At least the Chinese aren't censoring stuff I care about, allegedly, right? People are saying, well, our government's censoring our stuff and China's not censoring our stuff, so maybe China's freer than we are, which again is do you really want Americans to think that? Because you're driving them into the arms of the CCP. So that's my total thoughts on this. If you made it all the way through the video, thank you. If you liked it, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and thank you for watching.